All right, guys. Hi, welcome back to Actually Sustainable podcast on where we discuss how high achieving women, especially those with neurodivergence, can build and protect a life that actually feels sustainable or feels actually sustainable. I'm Rachel, your host. I am a physician assistant, writer, educator, all around hobbyist, ADHDer, burnout survivor, right? And I'm here to kind of talk to you guys about all of that and see how you guys can acknowledge what's going on in your life, and eventually we'll get into some of those ways to build that sustainable life. All right. Quick disclaimer. This is for educational and entertainment purposes only. This is not a replacement for individualized therapy, medical advice, or any other kind of professionally trained individualized care. So if you do feel that you need more than what this is doing, or if you feel like some of whatever I say resonates very strongly with you, has a very large reaction, then I do encourage you to seek a professionally trained clinician, therapist, whomever, so that you can get help along those lines. It can be immensely beneficial in many, many ways. So without further ado, let's get into this. This is episode number 3 officially. I did the last 2 weeks, and then I have a little bonus episode if you wanted to go back and kind of get to know who I am. I have that kind of bonus episode just giving you a bit of my backstory and how I got to where I am and why this is a passion of mine and why I want to share it with everybody. Okay. What we're going to talk about today is why rest doesn't work when your nervous system feels unsafe. Okay. We're going to get a little bit into science today because I am a science educator, and I think a lot of my followers are going to be in the medical community because that's where I live for the most part. So some of you are going to know a lot of this stuff, but if not, I'm going to go into the science of the nervous systems and how we end up feeling unsafe a lot of the times. Not too deep, don't worry. I'm not a neurologist, and you're not one of my students, so I'm not going to teach you anatomy. I do teach anatomy at the collegiate level. I do the nursing students at a college. So we talk a lot about this as well. But what we're going to do today is talk about how overall our nervous system regulates a whole lot of us, and our emotions end up regulating those nervous systems as well. We have, if we're running, that's going to increase our heart rate and our lung capacity and our respiratory rate. It's going to dilate our vessels to get the blood to places faster, and it's going to cause all things like that. That's stimulated through the nervous system. We have the vagus nerve. There's a whole area of practice. You can read a couple of different books about the polyvagal response, and it's just talking about sympathetic nervous system, parasympathetic nervous systems, and kind of how they all work together if you wanted to delve down that. I haven't read any of those books yet, so I'm not actively recommending them, but there are several if you look into polyvagal care. I don't know. I did look at them when preparing for this episode, but I didn't have enough time to read them all or read any of them really. But overall, it's mostly based on science. It was done by a PhD research initially, and then somebody took it and made it more digestible by the average public and put it in a couple of books. So you could look into that. But basically what happens is our vagus nerve is one of the biggest ones. It comes out of our, it's a cranial nerve, comes out of our spine, goes down and crosses over the top of our diaphragm, and it helps signal a whole lot of things. If we start breathing faster, it's going to get that signal, and it's going to say, hey, we're breathing faster for some reason. Maybe we should kick up the heartbeat to make up for that so that we can stay in pace, right? If we have pain, it's going to work. The sympathetic nervous system is our fight, flight, or freeze system. So threat hums, that's going to stimulate that nervous system, this sympathetic nervous system. The parasympathetic nervous system is our rest and relax system. So things that are going to happen when we are relaxed. So we're going to be able to digest. We're going to slow down our heart rate. We're going to slow down our metabolic rate in general. We're going to feel colder. We're going to feel more sleepy. That's what happens when we're tired. And so if we eat a great big meal, it's going to trigger that parasympathetic nervous system. It's going to trigger the parasympathetic nervous system to send blood down to the intestines and the stomach to digest the food, and that's going to shunt it away from other places, and it's going to slow our heart rate down and everything, so that we kind of sit still and let our food digest as best as it can, and then we're going to kind of go from there. Whereas, and we might get sleepy during that process, right? Whereas if something jumps out at us, a saber-toothed tiger jumps out and tries to eat us, that's going to trigger that sympathetic nervous system. If we can, we're going to either fight, we're going to fly away, we're going to run away, we're going to freeze or fawn. That's another term that people use in slightly different connotations sometimes, but fawning as well as freezing. And people do in emergency settings. You can read some of the reports of some of the big mass casualty events and things. Some people just look at it and all of a sudden they kind of just short circuit and they freeze and they can't move. They can't do, people call it shock, but it's just a form of sympathetic nervous system response, because you don't have the training to kick in for fighting, and you're not necessarily a runner. Like, your brain doesn't think of yourself as a gazelle that can run away from the saber-toothed tiger. It's more like, whatever, it's something that's going to freeze, and then maybe the saber-toothed tiger won't see us. Maybe they act like the T-Rex in the movies, and they can't see you if you don't move. So maybe we freeze. And we can get into the whole brain science and how it triggers the amygdala, which is our kind of root brain that talks about fear and all of that. And that's where trauma memories sit. And you can read the book, Body Keeps a Score, if you want. It kind of talks about that too. You can talk a lot of trauma stuff that goes into all of that. I'm not going to get that deep in this episode, but just recognize if your sympathetic nervous system is stimulated, your heart rate's going to go up, your respiratory rate's going to go up, you're going to feel anxious because you have this energy. You're supposed to be running away or fighting, right? Your adrenaline levels are going to go up. The thing about our evolution and where we are in modern day society is that generally saber-toothed tigers don't run around and eat people anymore, right? At least hopefully not. But our bodies, our amygdalas, don't know that difference from a whole bunch of emails that we have put a lot of importance to in our minds and a saber-toothed tiger coming. If we have a whole calendar for the day, a full schedule, and we have to get everywhere, and everybody's running late, and everything's happening wrong, and there's somebody in front of us in the car lane, and there's, right? That's going to just get us all sympathetic up. It's going to make our heart rate go. It's going to make our blood pressure go up. It's going to make our respiratory rate go up. All of our muscles are going to tense because those muscles need to be ready to sprint away from the saber-toothed tiger. But there's no saber-toothed tiger. So what do we do with that? We just end up living in this anxious state, in this higher sympathetic state, and we don't end up really ever turning that off. We can look into the burnout cycles. There's a bunch of books. I can put them in. The term burnout, I have her name. It starts with an N. It's like Amy, and I forget that. I'll put it in the show notes. The book Burnout, though, that came out a couple of years ago, it's really good, and it talks about the cycles and how we have to close those cycles and things like that to help reduce it. But we'll go into a lot of the actual techniques of doing this in future episodes. But the why of it is that our sympathetic nervous system never really fully shuts off in so much of our life. So even if we're resting, it's not fully off. We haven't told it we're safe. We need to do things that tell our body that we are safe. We've been running away from a saber-toothed tiger, according to our amygdala and our adrenaline glands, right? Our adrenal glands. So we need to tell it that we're back in our village, safe from that saber-toothed tiger, so that we can start getting that parasympathetic nervous system back on track. And then our digestion can kick back up. We'll go into the symptoms of this in more detail again later, kind of downstream. But basically, if we always have that number of tabs we talked about in episode 1, all those tabs open in the back of our brain, constantly telling us all the things that we should be doing, then that is essentially stalking the saber-toothed tiger all the time. And if you follow the saber-toothed tiger and sit down and doom scroll upwind, out of sight, you're around the corner, but you're still upwind from that saber-toothed tiger, and you know he's over there because you followed it there, are you really going to relax while you're doom scrolling upwind from the saber-toothed tiger, even if you can't technically see it, right? No, you're not going to relax. the same thing. You can see the saber-tooth tiger up on the ridge. It's only like 8 feet up above you, and there's a big prairie in front of you. You're not going to just stroll into the middle of that prairie and lay down and take a nap. You're going to lay there, hypervigilant. What's going to happen? When's he going to jump out? That's not the place to take it. But so many times, that's exactly what we do. We go, okay, I know I need to take a rest. This is the only time that I can take a rest. So I'm going to go take a rest. I'm going to sit down and I'm going to take a rest. And sometimes we're exhausted enough, we can fall asleep. But we wake up 5-10 minutes later and we don't feel a whole lot better. Maybe we were not as exhausted, but we're still not better. We're not rested because we didn't actually tell our bodies that we were safe. We didn't set ourselves up for success in that way. We ended up trying to take our rest right next to the saber-tooth tiger in modern versions. So what I would like you to do this week is pay attention to that. What else is going on in your brain when you are trying to rest? Is it actually restful? And then I want you to try to find something that kind of tells your body that you can relax, like one micro thing that you can do. I don't know how much you may have heard about heart rate variability, because they monitor that with like the fancy Oura rings and the whatever other body composition things that are out there now. But heart rate variability, basically what it comes down to is when you inhale, it triggers the sympathetic nervous system, the fight or flight one. When you exhale, you end up triggering that parasympathetic nervous system. When you inhale, your heart rate picks up a little bit. And then when you exhale, it slows down a little bit. We call it sinus arrhythmia too. And it's how much variability there is. The more variability you have, the healthier your overall nervous system. And it's not like drastically different, but it's the slight little differences between each beat. Some of them are a little bit closer together, some of them are a little bit farther apart, and that's based on whether you're inhaling or exhaling. So one very simple kind of trick that you can try to do, it's not going to change mountains, or it's not going to change your entire life. It's not going to move mountains. It's not all of that. But it can at least trigger and tell your body, hey, I don't need more adrenaline right now. Maybe just stop it. It may not reverse. It may not make you all calmer, but it might help move you forward, is to do the trapezoidal breathing. Okay, your box breathing helps, especially if you're panicked and you're hyperventilating, and it helps kind of steady your breathing. But trapezoidal is where like you take a breath in for a count of 4. So you're triggering your sympathetic nervous system, breathing in for 4, then you hold it for 4 to kind of tell the body, I'm not running from a saber-tooth tiger right now because I can't hold my breath while running from a saber-tooth tiger. I'm going to be breathing really quickly if that's happening. So you're going to tell your body, hey, I'm okay actually. Pay attention to some new signals now. And then you breathe out for a count of 6, which triggers your parasympathetic nervous system. And by triggering your parasympathetic nervous system for longer than you are triggering your sympathetic nervous system, it starts the process of undoing all of that throughout your whole body and making that parasympathetic more responsive and more active in your body at that time than the sympathetic nervous system. So it will help bring down some of that, and it'll help break down some of that overall anxiety, help bring down some of that kind of stuff of I have to do all the things all the time and everybody. So it's a little micro reset that you can do just to bring it down a notch. This is not earth shattering, but bring it down a notch. 3 to 5 of those in a row will have a noticeable, if small, difference on your nervous system and help with that generalized anxiety and overwhelm for at least that moment. And then you can talk to your kids in a way that you are more comfortable talking to them. You're going to be able to not, get in a car accident because you're road raging or whatever. And it's a nice simple thing you can do anywhere at any time. And you don't even need, I'm not going to make you do the fancy breathe in and make yourself breathe out real loud and all of the other kind of breathing techniques. We can get into those details later. There's a lot of theories about it. There's a lot of different, sciences and practices that do a lot of different stuff. I'm not getting that fancy. Breathe in, hold it for a bit, and breathe out longer. That's it. And if you can, hold it for a little bit before you breathe back in again, but just make sure you're breathing out longer than you breathed in, and try to take a pause in the middle and see if that helps. Let me know in the comments below if it did. Send me a message if you can, and just kind of let me know how that worked for you. If this resonated at all, please give me a review wherever you want to give me a review. Share it with any female coworker, friend, family that you feel might benefit from this as well. If you're on a podcast, please give me a follow. If you're on video, please subscribe. And, like I said, give me a review if it helps. If you think this helped at all, because it would help me. All right. Until next week, keep doing the best you are, because I know you're doing your best. Bye.